Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, bom dia, boa tarde. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning, celebrating our course, Letras, Língua Inglesa e Respectivas Literaturas, from Federal University of Acre. We are gathered today to have the second session of our online event, Letras at 50, Linguistic Studies in English. This event is organized by me, Professor Maísa Dourado, and my colleagues from Programa de Extensão de Literatura, Língua e Literaturas de Língua Inglesa, Professors Patrícia Marolvo, Rogério Correia, and Francisco Veloso. Before we start, I would like to thank the audience for participation. I kindly ask you to submit your questions and comments and questions through chat. Perguntas e comentários também podem ser enviados em português, se você se sente mais confortável, ok? Não tem problema. Of course, I would like to thank my dearest friend and academic partner, Professor Daniel Ferraz from USP, that is our guest this morning. Finally, I would like to thank Professor Rogério Correia for the partnership in this event, and he will be conducting this session from now on. Espero que tenhamos todos uma manhã proveitosa e prazerosa discutindo um tópico tão relevante. Muito obrigado novamente. Bom dia a todos. Sou Rogério, com você agora.
Thank you very much, Professor Maísa. Muito obrigado a todos que estão conosco nessa manhã. Thank you very much for everyone who are together with us from every part of Brazil and many places of other institutions. So we thank you for being here today to attend to our event. And in this afternoon to some of you, we have the great pleasure to have along with us Professor Daniel Ferraz, which is a colleague of ours, and a great professor in his area. And we are going to share with you today in this brilliant day the topic academic literacies, the roles of writing in students' education. Professor Daniel Ferraz is a specialist on this topic, of course, and I'm going to make the formal presentation of him, and then after this slightly presentation, Professor Daniel Ferraz is going to have some time to make his presentation. Okay, I hope you enjoy all this event. I would like to also remind you that this event is being rolled on in a joint organization with CeSLiC Department of University of Bologna. Not only UFAC, but University of Bologna is along with us, and we have some professors from some countries and some students from different countries with us. So we thank you all from Australia, from China, from Italy, and from all different ways we cannot actually see here through the YouTube, but you are all welcome, and we thank you for your participation, as well as many students of different universities. I have seen yesterday on the chat students from Ceará, from São Paulo, from some states from south here in Brazil. So we thank you all for being here attending our event. Okay, now we have Professor Daniel Ferraz, which is a professor of language, English language area in the modern literacy department, and in the post-graduation in literary and linguistics studies at the University of São Paulo, USP, Universidade de São Paulo. He is also a researcher of CNPq and coordinates the national project of literacy here in Brazil, which involves Universidade de São Paulo, plus 35 Brazilian and international universities. So Professor Daniel is the coordinator of this program. and also he is connected to and coordinates a group of studies on linguistics and foreign language education. So this is what Professor Daniel Ferraz is doing at this moment, and we are extremely honored and pleased to have you here today with us, Professor Daniel. Thank you very much for finding some space in your very complicated schedule to be here with us. We thank you. And Professor Daniel is going to start right now with his speech at this morning and afternoon for most of you. In academic literacies, the roles of writing in students' education. Professor Daniel, please be very welcome. You can use all the time you need to make your presentation. Feel like home, and we hope to have you soon here in Acre to know our state and our university. It's an honor to have you here today.
Thank you, Rogério. Very warm welcome. Thank you so much. Yes, I do feel at home. I've been to UFAC sometimes in my life. With the pandemic, things got very difficult, and I'd like to start by thanking the organizing committee. I know it's not easy. It's a week conference to celebrate the jubilee, the 50 years of UFAC Letras, and I'd like to thank special thanks to Dr. Maísa Dourado, who has been an academic partner since for a long time now. And Rogério, thank you for moderating this talk, this presentation, and thank you for you guys present here on YouTube. I'd like to ask you if you can, if you've had your breakfast already over there in Acre and over here in São Paulo too. It's 11 o'clock here. If you could join me with interactions in the chat. So I'm here on the screen, but I'm also following here on my mobile phone. So digital times allow that. Well, I will start then sharing my PowerPoint, my slides, and Edgy, if and Rogério, I will be just looking at the full screen slide. So if you wish to communicate with me, I would ask you to jump in back to the screen and talk to me if possible. Okay. So let's start then, and. Hoping that everything is okay. So there we go again. So first of all, congratulations on the 50 years of the Letras, the language and literature course. It's such an honor for me to be here to talk about something really, really important, which is the roles of writing in students' education. I do have to apologize. You will hear from time to time two puppies, fighting here, but I hope they behave today. I start working and then they start, playing. But anyways, I'd like to congratulate in our graduate or postgraduate program here at USP. We are also celebrating 50 years of the graduate program. So a lot of 50 years celebrations this year. So this is the title of my presentation, Academic Literacies, the Roles of Writing in Students' Education. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with some introductions. So I'll start with Freire, and then I'll start with some images, and then I'll move on to part one, talking about literacies, so the way I see literacies, so that we can discuss a little bit of academic literacies and why then academic literacies are so important, in the students' lives since the very day of my presentation, as you could see in the proposal of my abstract. And then I'll finish with one academic project. If there's time, I'll talk about two, but probably one academic literacy project that I developed here at USP. Okay. Now, why all this agenda? Let's say in each moment of my talk, I'd like to invite you to reflect upon this idea of writing, and I'll start then with, oh, there's an inversion here. Sorry, guys. I'd like to start right away with this one. I do apologize. Yeah, this is the very first one. So this is good. It's like a blackboard. So I'd like us to start with a warm-up. What do you write at the university, at the Letras course? So this is just for us to start, let's say. But those who are with me on YouTube, okay, in the chat, I'd like you to think about the roles of writing and which times do you have to write, with which objectives, in which disciplines, and what kind of writing do you have to do. And we're going to be silent for a moment. I know silence sometimes people don't like it, but I will give you around 2 minutes for you to take notes. You can take notes on your mobile phone. You can take notes on a piece of paper, or you can just think, make a moment to reflect. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for you to think, write, or take notes about what do you write in the university. Do you write papers, articles, notes for class notes, class what kind of writing do you do, in which discipline? So get this moment to go back in time and to do that. Of course, here's I'm talking about undergraduate students, but also the post-grad students and researchers. If you are a researcher, a professor already, I'd like to invite you to think along with me. What kinds of writings do you have to do? So we're going to be silent for a moment, as I promised. I saw Livia. Sorry, guys. Livia is interacting with me in the chat. So if you wish to interact with me, that's possible too. Write in the chat, what do you write at the university? Okay, time is over. Silence is good sometimes, right? So I was checking here on the chat, on YouTube chat, and then Livia said reports, diaries, articles, reviews, and then a lot of people saying good morning to me. Thank you, Maria Aparecida. And then uh, oh, the guys from the backstage here, ELLI, the organizers, papers, books, reviews, article reviews. That must be Rogério. Reports, Gabriel Góes, mostly reports, seminar presentation scripts. So you write the scripts, right, Gabriel, so that you prepare yourself to present the seminar. Now, why is this question important to me? Because I think that uh, uh, we write a lot when you're doing a language and literature course. So we read a lot and we write a lot. Yeah, most of our, and here I'm thinking about the undergraduate level. But if you think about the graduate or slash postgraduate level, you, we are supposed to write a lot too. You have to write uh, a PhD dissertation or a master thesis. So it's a lot of pages of writing. And sometimes this is not discussed with the students I will try to show you. You to stop. As I will try to show you. And so the students start university, and here I'm talking about letras, but I'm also thinking about every student from hard sciences, from biology, medical studies. They all have to produce a lot of writing, be them tests or be them reports, but they are not guided from the beginning. And this is what I think, and this is from my experience also as an undergraduate student. You have literature classes, for example, and you have to analyze a short story, go and do it. And in the language part, the language disciplines, you are supposed to write papers, articles, reports, all of them with high level of academic writing, but nobody taught the students how to do so. So this is a very big question for me, and I'm inviting you to reflect about the kinds of writings we do. Most of our writings, they are very traditional. I mean, they are still within the linear thinking. And I'm also touching this, if this is the case in contemporary societies, but this is a good question for us to start, at least to me. And then I'll move on to my first introduction. And I think it's very important as we end the year, and this is the centennial of Paulo Freire, and it's very important to bring him back to the scene again and again and again, as many times as we can. I have given a lot of lectures talking about Freire this year. Yesterday, I was in an event in Australia, I mean, online Australia, and celebrating the centennial of Paulo Freire. And so this is one of the quotes, thousands of quotes that I like very much. Eu gostaria de ser lembrado como sujeito que amou profundamente o mundo e as pessoas, os bichos, as árvores, as águas, a vida. So I start my talk with this beautiful quote in Portuguese, our beautiful language. And then I've selected two other quotes, two ideas from Freire. Here is Freire and Macedo, in which they talk about writing, okay? So reading the world always precedes reading the word. That's very famous. And reading the word implies continually reading the world. So I'll go again. Reading the word, the text, always precedes reading the world, sorry, reading the world, sorry, always precedes reading the word, the text. And reading the word, the text, implies continually reading the world. So in a way, however, we can go further and say that reading the word is not preceded merely by reading the world, but by a certain form of writing it or rewriting it, that is, of transforming it by means of conscious practical work. For me, this dynamic movement is central to the literacy processes. This is a quote by Freire, but in Freire and Macedo's text. Now, so for Freire, writing is as important as reading. So we are writing and rewriting the world as well. We might think, guys, I have to apologize. Just a second. These two puppies, they drive me crazy. Just a second. I do apologize. Oh, sorry, guys. Emotions of having two babies. They are terrible. They're terrible. I don't know if you can hear them, but they're fighting right now. I do apologize. So going back to this idea of reading and writing, writing and rewriting the world. Okay. And then I have the second idea from Freire. It's in the same book. Now, try to do an exercise, attempting to think correctly. Write on a piece of paper how you see this problem. Can the education of children and adults after the independence of our country be equal to the education that we had before independence? So here, Freire is always suggesting and proposing a very critical work with the peasants' education, but with education in general. But I really liked this idea of try to do an exercise and write on a piece of paper. We do this a lot. Hopefully, we do this a lot with our students. Take a piece of paper and write some of your ideas, brainstorm. So this was part of Freire's practice as well. And this idea of writing and rewriting the world is very, very important and very relevant to me. And I imagine that it's very important for the students as well. So it's important for us to talk to our students, we teacher educators. And when you're an English teacher in a public setting or in a private setting, that by writing you are also transforming the world. So when you're producing research and you're contributing to the science of Brazil, you are to a certain extent transforming the world. You're not transforming the whole world by writing, but you're transforming a little bit of the world, a drop of the ocean. And this is what I believe, and this is what I see a lot with the writings that I've done, of course, in terms of research and in the case of literacies research. Well, so now what we're going to do, I'd like you to do a visual literacy activity with me. And this is just a suggestion. If you don't want to do it or take a break from the talk, you can get some coffee, etc. But the suggestion is, I have this question for you. Is this writing for you? And I'd like you to interact with me in the chat. If you recognize this image, if you know what it is, and if you consider this writing or no. So this is just a game for us to interact a little bit, because I don't like those very long talks in which the speaker just speaks. I don't know if you agree with me. At least for me, I get tired. But this is like an interaction moment again, in which I'd like you to go to the chat and just tell me yes or no. This is right. Yes, this is writing for me, and this is no. It will be a yes, no, and if you recognize the image. Okay, this is going to be very fast too, as it is an introduction. So let's move on. Can you do it with me? Let me tell you that I see you all here, okay, in the chat room of YouTube. Okay, so let's go. This is the first one. My question is this writing for you? Do you recognize it? Albert, yes. Ah, we were yesterday in the event of Australia, right? Yes, I agree. This is right. Do you recognize this kind of writing? This is research data, right? Or research data. Next one, is this writing for you? So give me a yes or give me a no, or maybe, or I don't know. We're doing this very fast. Yeah, I see a lot of yes, yes, yes. Some people might say no, right? This is a pen to me. Is this writing for you? Yes. Okay. Yes, definitely. Okay. Is this writing for you? Now, is this right? This writing is very differently from this one, right? Even though you're doing the same activity, correct? And this one, is this writing? So imagine there's a board there and maybe a class. Yeah, okay. What about this one? Is this writing? Do you recognize it? So I'm here trying to interact with you. Yes. Yeah. Yes, too. Yes, yes, yes. A different kind of writing, right? Albert, Cherry, Annalise, Christiane, Kayla, Christina, Annalise. Yeah. Baba said no. Okay. Maybe it's right. Yes, for sure. Remember, we don't have to agree. Tell me your opinion. Now, a very similar one. Is this writing for you? So as you can see, I'm start, I'm starting to make some provocations for you, and I'll do that along my talk. Uh, this one, is this writing? So you probably recognize the hieroglyphs, right? Hieroglyphics, and I always confuse them. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Christina, Erin, yes, 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 that's writing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. What about this one? Is this writing? The image is not so good. Yes, it is. Do you recognize what it is? What kind of writing it is? Yeah. So we're looking at ideograms, and if I'm not mistaken, this is Japanese. The image is a little bit bad. I do apologize for that. Now, this one, is this writing? That's a polemic one. Chinese. Sorry, CG. Is it Chinese, CG? Yes, thank you. Zishi Duan. Is this one writing? Looks like Chinese. Yes, yes. No, no. This is a polemic one. Yes, no. I think so. And what about this one? All of this combined, is this writing? Can we say that this is writing? This is a text for you. Remember, it's your opinion. And of course, I'm doing this because you can interact with each other, uh, having all of these images and this activity in mind. Yes, yes, yes. Kenya did. Maybe she's thinking. What about this one? Is this writing? I think your answers they come later on to me. Yeah, after 10 seconds, right? Because the broadcast has this time of difference. Japanese text, sure. This one, the this young man moving towards going in direction of the globe. I think so. I think so. Semiotics, okay. And yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh. Verbal and visual texts, okay. And just for us to finish, I typed writing, and I think I did it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And look at some images I decided to include in this activity, this and this, I think, the computer. But basically, when we think about writing, we think about, as Westerns, as Brazilians, we think about the linearity and the alphabet, right? And what I've tried to show you with this activity is that writing can be a lot of things. So for me, it's very important not only at the university in teacher education courses, but when you're teaching English in basic education, elementary education, or in high school, or it's very important to discuss even the concept of writing and the kinds of writings with our students, because otherwise they take for granted that writing can be only one thing. And it's nice to share with them that in other cultures people write differently, and In other times, like in caveman times, people also wrote differently. They didn't have the alphabet, but they did have ideograms and verbal, visual communication, right? So writing can be a lot of things. An image can be writing, if depending on the time. For us now, and for many people, an image cannot be writing, but it was some millions of years ago, as I showed you with some pictures. Well, so now I'm moving on to part one of my presentation. So before we discuss the writing at the university, because this is what academic literacy is to me, is the writing of academics, right? So what we do, like you said, reports, essays, critical essays, master theses, PhD dissertations, papers, articles, book chapters, of course, classroom notes, diaries, something more literary, right? So, or narratives. So we do all of this, okay? But what joins all of these examples that I've just given you is that usually in academic settings we are talking about a very specific kind of writing that is a lot attached to the normative side of it, to the correction, to the style, and to this academic style. So in order for us to talk about academic literacies, I decided to talk a little bit about literacies and invite you to reflect upon this movement. This is a huge movement in Brazil. It's been here for about 20, 25 years now, but around the world for for about that time as well. And I think that for me to talk about the way I see academic literacies, which will be the end of my presentation, I should be talking about how I see literacies. Today, I'm just using a book and an article, but there's a lot of literature around the theme. So when we talk about literacies, the first thing, the key word is that language is considered a social practice as something that is part of our life. So this is very important for literacies, language. Therefore, the way we teach, it's part of our lives. So they're saying that, of course, there is a spatial separation between university and what is out there, but for me, the way I read literacies, these walls, they shouldn't exist. So it should be language being studied as something, as part of society. Now, this makes the job of academic literacies very difficult because, as I've just told you, academic literacy is a very, very specific genre which requires very specific characteristics demanded from the academia. So for you to write a paper, a response paper, you need to follow the academic rules and the academic language and the academic jargon. So now the challenge is how can you do that from the point of view of literacies, which is suggesting that it is a social practice all the time. So this is the challenge, as I will try to show you in a moment. And the question for me is, why does university in many contexts separate them? So here I have this video for you, and I will invite you to watch it with me. And Edgy, can you help me? This is a 3-minute video with an introduction to the concept of literacy. So here again, I'm not talking about academic literacies yet. I'm talking about the very concept of literacies in order to reach academic literacies. Okay? Ed, can we show the video? Is it
Yeah,
possible?
you can put on the PowerPoint the video.
No, that's not possible. Okay, I can share it from here. I'll get the guide of Chrome. and then I'll share it from here, okay? You just tell me, Ed, can you stay here with me, Ed, please? Just to tell me if everything is working properly. It's a very short video that I invite you to watch with me with the concept of literacies. Let's go. Takes a little bit of time to start.
It's okay.
What we're talking about in these videos is the topic of literacy, but how literacy fits in on a human scale. So if we think of the whole of human history, what we're talking about is how literacy fits into that. Most of human existence, there wasn't literacy in the sense that we know it today. What there was is a lot of oral communication, also a lot of visual and gestural and other forms of communication.
In this introduction, we're going to talk about the concept of literacy. It is one of the most important concepts of our epoch. I think we all know that at its base, it means to read and write. However, when language moves from its spoken form to any other form, like reading and writing, it becomes an artifact and it becomes a piece of technology. And that's the first point we want to make in this course, that there is nothing natural about reading and writing. It's a historic development at a particular point in time. Language, of course, is natural. We have the capacity to speak and to make meaning through speaking. And all of us are born into communities where we learn the language that we're going to speak. It might be English or Spanish or any other kind of language. It's not the language itself that's innate, but the capacity to speak is innate. However, once that language becomes turned into symbols, which writing is, or what we call literacy, is the symbolic representation of language, it takes on a manufactured form. And in this manufactured form, it leaves traces and it lasts beyond our utterance and it's transported. But more importantly than this, once language becomes symbolic in this particular kind of way, it changes the way in which we live, the way we understand the life world. It changes the way we think and the way we experience the world. Of course, humans have the capacity to make meaning in many different forms, and together we're going to explore 3 historic moments. We've called them globalizations because they are phenomena that occurred across the globe. The first one, of course, we've called first languages, and they are the languages spoken by peoples as they emerged and covered the globe. And this period, in fact, has lasted for 100,000 years. The second globalization that we're going to talk about, the phenomenon that spread across the world, we've called writing. And curiously, I think for us, it's only been around for 5,000 years. So that might seem like a long time, but it really isn't in terms of human history. And more recently, we have another globalization that we believe is as a consequence of what we call new media and new literacy. And it's only been around for 60 years. Now, we'd like to make a case through this course and through the modules that you are going to engage with, that each one of these globalizations has a very different set of features. It has particular constraints, particular opportunities, and particular expectations that we will explore together.
Okay, so this is just a little bit of Bill Cope, America Lances. They have these series of videos with introductory concepts of literacies. I do recommend that you see. So there's, okay, the continuation, let's say, of this series. They're very, very short videos. I'm not going to show you this one. But when we start with G, for example, he says that literacies are more than the mental ability to write and read. Yeah, and that book that I show you, he argues that literacy is a social phenomenon, is social because the mind itself is social. So it's for him, so literacy is important because of that. Even if you think that what you're reading and what you're writing and the very activity of thinking, cognition is already social, right? And then,
Hello, Professor. Very sorry to
yes.
interrupt you. It's just to remind you that we have a little bit more than 30 minutes by now, okay? 32
Okay.
minutes, 33, okay? It's just
Okay.
to help you to control your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rogério. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was very helpful. So, and then G talks about the challenge to literacies, that literacy is not a minor or isolated topic. In fact, it's too big for one discipline. It must be studied as a team effort equipped with different disciplines, skills, insights, and methods. And again, I think this is a little bit of Paulo Freire, but also this interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary talk. We should start questioning all the divisions we make and maybe working with disciplines in a more interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary way. He also talks about the challenges from literacies, which is the one since the 80s in which reading and writing were treated as a mental activity and studied in terms of what went on in the minds and the brain. So this is a very, if you're a little bit older, it's the cognitivist and the cognition, very important part in our linguistic studies, of course, as well. But we started realizing that 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 could not be the only way of looking into the way we produce language and the way we learn languages, right? So here he continues that these mental abilities are exquisitely sensitive to social and cultural context. So even the cognition, it is developed through social, historical, and cultural context, right? And then I'm moving on to this to the ideas from this article that was published by Montemor, Duboc, and Ferraz. And over there, we are talking about three generations of literacies in Brazil. I'll do very fast here because my time is already, we are already halfway, and I hope everybody is okay in the chat. You can keep asking me questions or comments if you wish, if anything that I'm saying is not clear enough. So we have this first phase of literacies in Brazil in the 60s with Paulo Freire, okay? And even though Paulo Freire didn't talk about the term literacies, letramentos, he talked about critical education, and many of his ideas influenced the literacies movements around the world. And so we are saying that we have a second generation of literacies with Street, Barton, Heath, and G, and Soares in Brazil. So the second phase, a lot attached, let's say, to the Portuguese area with Soares, Kleiman, and everyone else. And this third phase with the contribution of the English language studies. And here I'm just citing Montemor, Menezes Souza, and Jordão, but there are many others. And of course, these generations, they are not, this one has ended and in order for the other to start. I'm not saying that, but I think the cycles that they have been dialoguing, the generations that have been dialoguing since probably the Freire's time. This is what I believe. We are questioning here if there isn't a fourth generation of literacies, really thinking about Brazilian issues and the difficulties that we face to conduct literacies ou processo de alfabetização, processo de letramentos, desde a educação básica until the higher education, yeah, which ends up in the academic literacy, né? A educação superior, ela termina o processo principalmente com o letramento acadêmico. Well, so I'm going to ask again this question: why does university in many contexts separate them? And then I have two scenes here for you that let me think about. Let me check my time. Yes, unfortunately, because of time, I'm not going to show them, but they are in my slides, and I can send you the links. Look, the links are here. Let me just make them in another color. Yeah, so the links are here for you to watch later calmly. But this first one is Entre os Muros da Escola, Entre les Murs. And it's the class of Imperfeito do Indicativo, okay? So it's a wonderful film, and if you haven't seen, please do it, for us to think about literacies and education. So this is a class in which the students are questioning, professor, por que a gente tem que aprender o imperfeito do indicativo do francês, né? And then starts the whole discussion. So as you will see, what are the students doing? They are not against grammar. We need to learn grammar, but why? What for? What are the examples? What does it have to do with my life? Watch this film. It's beautiful. And the other one, it's called No One Less, em português, Nenhum a Menos. Esse filme tem inteirinho na internet, no YouTube, dura 1 hora e pouquinho. It's a beautiful film. And this is a Chinese girl, and she is 13 years old, and she becomes the teacher of a poor community in China. And the movie is called Not One Less, Nenhum a Menos, because she will get a salary by the end of the month. She comes to replace a teacher. And if she doesn't lose any student, she will get the whole salary. If she loses one student, if one student drops out, she will lose the salary. So this is the whole story. And she's 13 years old. She's not a teacher, and she becomes a teacher and a life teacher to the students. What am I trying to show with these two films? Is that there's I think that the school social practices, for me, they need to be revisited, because the school's social practices, they are they're not real, between quotation marks. We always use the example. I like this example of there is, there are. Quando o professor vai ensinar there is, there are, he uses the example, there is a bear in the swimming pool. Agora, gente, me fala quando é que vai ter urso na piscina da sua casa. Aí, se a gente entrar com Paulo Freire, né? Quem é que tem piscina? Quem é que pode ter piscina? Bom, e por aí vai, né? Então, many of the school social practices, they are not real to the students, and there's too much theorizing. Né? Então, assim, tem muita teoria que é essencial, é importante, tá? Eu não estou dizendo que não é importante. O problema é quando a gente só faz isso, né? E não faz uma aula extremely didactic, productive, interactive, it's critical with the students. And this film shows a lot these practices within the school walls and the traditional school and this millenarian university. Whereas the social practices, for example, if you think about the social media nowadays, they are real to our students. It makes sense to them. They are outside the school walls. And here I'm using the example of the media, how the world of the media seems to be more interesting for our students. And here I'm talking about teenagers and even children and also adults than our classes. So we need to think about this in contemporary education. And this is the proposal of Literacies. I'm not reading this because of time. Again, I'm worried about concluding my talk, but here you have the characteristics of this traditional school that I'm trying to show you or present here. It's vertical, central, individuality of the students, it's modern. Here we're still talking about alfabetização e não letramentos, e a escola mesmo que a gente conhece, a escola moderna. Aqui a gente está falando ainda num conceito de ensino-aprendizagem de línguas. O professor ensina e o aluno aprende. Nessa nova proposta, que é a proposta dos letramentos, we are talking about negotiation, collectivity, the presence of fun, emotions. Also, we are talking about education and literacies instead of alfabetização. E a gente está falando de educação linguística ao invés de ensino-aprendizagem. Okay? Well, of course, you might say that this is very, there's a dichotomy here, right? Dichotomous, let's say, but I think the proposal is really to join the linguistic knowledge and the transdisciplinary knowledge. So to cross these borders, this dichotomy, and to do both works. And this is the challenge proposed by the literacies. There are many literacies movements, but critical literacies, new literacies, multiliteracies. As I told you, I can send you all this material. All of them were influenced by Freire. Okay, all of the movements of literacies, they were influenced by Freire. And now I move on to the final part of my talk, which is the academic literacies. So for me, when we talk about academic literacies, we need to problematize the concept of literacies. Quer dizer, letramento acadêmico, a gente tem que pegar a raiz, para mim, letramento. E aí, we should look at academic literacies, for me, in the same ways I believe a good literacy process should be at the university. So just for you to have an idea, this is the map of sciences of the academic world. And the white dots here, all these white dots here in the center, they represent language studies. So letras, filosofia, etc. Now look how social sciences, now look how they are important for the world of academic. You have, for example, electrochemistry here in the periphery, engineering in the periphery, but you have the languages, the philosophies in the center, and education connecting all the others. What do I mean by that? Even if you wish to become an engineer, you will need some kind of academic literacy because you will be at the university. So if you are in Western universities and modern universities, there's no way to escape from us. So it's very important that we know this, and it's also very important to me to talk to our students at the university. So now I'm basically focusing on the university, what we do at the university, okay? And also to make clear that, for example, research produces knowledge to transform society. So that's a very important movement, that every time a student produces something, and in this case, he tries to publish that very beautiful text he or she have written, this will transform society. And sometimes they don't have this idea. Now, the problem and the challenge is, if you think about the academic world here, this academic world, or the academic literacy world, we are thinking about one kind of writing, the linear, the alphabetic, and the one that ends up in the text. I saw somebody asked me here about the difference between text and word and words, right? So the words end up in text, and text for me can be a lot of things, not only this kind of text that I'm talking about now, dependent on writing, but writing, as any definition online or dictionaries, is the words on paper, or composition of text, or composing of text for publication. Okay, so this is the basic grounding of writing, the views of writing, and the basic grounding of academic literacies at the university. Now, I'm not saying this shouldn't be, because I myself, I love writing. I love to write. It's a moment of reflection for me. I really like to publish my texts and to have conversations with people from all over Brazil and the world about them. So I'm not saying this shouldn't be the case. But what I'm saying is that if you start thinking about the literacy concept, there are many things we should change, as I will show you, with the idea of writing. And here I'm using Highland to talk about this academic discourse and literacy in a way. So all of the activities that we do, remember I asked you to start with that activity. So for Highland, many things that you said, textbooks, essays, conference presentations, dissertations, lectures, research articles. So all of this are essential for the academic discourse, and therefore the academic literacy. why is academic discourse and academic literacies, they're growing so much in Brazil? And according to Highland around the world, but I agree this goes for Brazil. I think the diversity of students, for example, if you think about ENEM in the past years, this has changed a lot. The races, genders, classes, sexualities, the profile of the students at federal universities and state universities in Brazil, the, and the increased attention given to teaching and learning by funding bodies. So you have CAPES, CNPq, all of them funding. Of course, this is a difficult time to talk about this now, research funding in Brazil, because of this government that is trying to destroy the public higher education, the universities in Brazil, for obvious reasons, because here we read Paulo Freire, here we practice the ideas of Paulo Freire. We want our students to be critical, to criticize our classes. Please criticize this talk that I'm having with you, and let's negotiate the many meanings. And this is not something that a government would wish. They would like robots, not thinking robots. But anyways, just a parenthesis, sorry. And the emergence of the English as an international language of scholarship. Now here, Highland will talk about, when we talk about academic literacy or academic discourse, we are talking about this idea that students are usually considered a deficit. Now, there's a problem here, because if the student is always the problem, have we asked ourselves if we taught the students to write academically before the university? Because when they do vestibular, they don't have to write anything academic. Vestibular is more the disciplines of the medium education, of the medium level education, right? The high school. And then when they start university, be them letras or engineering or law or any course, they will be required to write academically. And that's where academic literacy is jumping, and students don't know what to do with it. I don't know if this rings a bell to the people in the audience with me, but that's how I felt when I did university 25, 30 years ago. Because I was lost. I had to read a short story, okay, Maisa, in literature, and then I had to write a critical essay. And then I was like, my God, what the hell is a critical essay? So, and then students, because they don't know and they are not guided, they are considered a deficit when they were not taught. So, and this is, I think, the second challenge, and this is in my context. Students are faced with a paradox. This is what I just said. While they are required to write articles, essays, and response papers, etc., in Portuguese and in English, in the case of double licenciatura, since the very first term, academic literacy courses are optional and usually taught in the very first years of the undergrad. So this is a paradox to me, because they are required to write within the academic literacy framework, but it is taught when they are taught, just when they finish the course. So this is a huge paradox. At least in my context at USP, we do that. And in my context at USP, academic literacies and writing, as disciplinas de escrita, escrita acadêmica, letramento acadêmico, tópicos de pesquisa, they are optional. Can you believe that? So this is a big challenge. Of course, we are rethinking the curriculum right now, and one of the proposals is to change this. But a lot of things are changing, but we have all of these challenges. And I think the third challenge is the views of writing. So academic literacies in their traditional view, right? Sorry, guys. Some typos. Their traditional view So academic literacies in their traditional view remain. Ai, gente, desculpa, eu tenho pouco de I have to correct, I'm sorry. In their traditional view, remain attached to the written linear text, while students and society have developed and chosen other types of writing, for example, multimodal writing, as I showed you at the beginning of this presentation. So there is another paradox here that the university, through academic literacies, they require a certain style and vocabulary and way of writing, but students come to us very different from this style, and they prefer other types of writing. And here, of course, I'm talking about from my experience. And students ask me, can I use images? Can I write a visual narrative? So they're always asking me these things if they can, because they know they cannot. And the academic literacies in universities and teacher educations have remained optional disciplines in many contexts when students need them from the very first semester. Okay, so these are some challenges when we think about writing at the university. And to conclude, as I promised, I'd like to finish with um, a suggestion, let's say, but it's something that I have done. And if you want to get in touch with me, I can send you the book and the project for you to design in your universities for sure. But I will talk about these two projects. They're very similar, so I'll talk about this one that I developed at USP from 2018 to 21, and it's called Language Education in University: Fostering Social Just Practices in Undergraduate Context. Então, educação linguística em universidade, pensando em práticas mais sociais em contexto de educação. And what is this? Bom, it's a course on language and discourse, língua e cultura e discurso, são essas disciplinas que eu dei aula, 2018, 19, and 20. And then students wrote response papers, very short and very subjective, quer dizer, eles falando a partir da primeira pessoa deles mesmo. Então, você já vê uma mudança em termos de letramento acadêmico e escrita. They have a lot of difficulty in writing in first person and brought their own discussions to the text. They chose their own topics to be discussed. So this is why they had to write in first person. So I, Daniel Ferraz, believe that blah, 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 blah. So the characteristics of the project: dialogical relationship, literacy broker from the professor, the role of the literacy broker, openness, flexibility, encouragement within the group, but also from the teacher. And why is that? Porque foi a primeira vez na vida que esses alunos de graduação foram convidados a escrever um texto a ser publicado. Estou falando na nossa língua, porque é muito importante isso. Not that in English it's not. Eu quero enfatizar em português, né? Que é um livro só de letras em inglês, alunos de letras em inglês do nível de graduação. E eu estou dizendo isso porque todos podem. Qualquer aluno de graduação tem condições. If we change some of the ideas that we have in terms of academic literacy. So after the courses, students were invited to join this collaborative writing project, in which they were invited to expand their response papers. So the idea is that in the discipline, they wrote something very simple, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. And then they were invited, after they finished the course, to belong to a community of authors to this project, in which they were helping each other, reading each other's chapter. I would give them feedback. And this is the beautiful result. This is the book that we have just published, Educação Linguística e Universidade. I can send you the book. It's free online. I imagine there was no time. I have 1 or 2 minutes to finish, but it's a wonderful book. I'm very proud of my students. They are very critical, very creative. E é isso, gente. Se você permite e vai fazendo um processo bem bacana, é um livro que tem muitas imagens, eles usaram memes, etc. images from the internet. This one is about neoliberalism and education. I love all of them, but just for you to have an idea about the book, Digital Literacies in Contemporary Society. Again, Letras, English students wrote this book from the undergrad, graduação, okay? Discourse, literature, and society. Fandom, a lot of students two students talking about fandom marginalia, and oppressive discourses. We had students talking about the xenophobic discourse of Trump and Brexit. And we also have the students talking about Yellow Peril, o perigo amarelo, e a triangulação racial. I love this text by Douglas. We also had identity issues and representation of a black woman, of black women, and lesbian discourse as a form of social transformation. As I told you, I love all of the chapters. I'm very proud of the students' work, and I will finally finish in English. We are allowed to do that with this video of Vida Maria. And before I show you, I don't know if I ask Rogério if I can use 3 minutes more. Can I, Rogério? Because my time is over. Can I, Rogério, use 3 minutes?
Yes, Professor, for sure. You have all the time. We have some more time. I was containing by myself to not interrupt you because it's great. Your presentation is awful.
Thank you.
And people are just asking you for more. So please.
Okay, thank you. It's because I have spoken for 1 hour already, and UFAC, guys, was very generous. And thank you for being here, because 1 hour is a lot, I think. But it's really good to have 1 hour, because you can develop your ideas, right? 20 minutes, you can do nothing in 20 minutes. So this is my last minute conclusion. For a renewed academic literacy and therefore writing, a gente tem que pensar em outras formas de olhar para a escrita na universidade. For a renewed academic literacy to take place, one that makes sense to our students, future teachers, and researchers, it has to first of all reshape how it sees literacy itself. So part 1 of my presentation, review the academia side objectives of it. Second part of my presentation. And finally, admit that writing has been transformed by social relations, such as digital ones, while the university insists on a very traditional, linear kind of writing. And again, I'm not saying that this is not important. I really like to write and publish the tradition within the academic digital literacy, but I think we should negotiate more possibilities with the students, okay? So I will finish with this beautiful video called Vida Maria. E é um vídeo curtinho de 2 minutinhos. E aí eu vou encerrar então a minha apresentação, agradecendo imensamente a todos vocês pela atenção, pela paciência de estar aqui comigo 1 hora. Aqui está o meu e-mail, my email, my site, my Instagram, Dan Ferraz with double N, Twitter, Facebook, e aqui está meu e-mail again. So let me just finish with this beautiful video, Vida Maria, e com isso eu encerro e agradeço, tá bom? O Ed já está me ajudando aqui. Thank you, Ed.
Maria José. Oh, Maria José, tu não tá me ouvindo chamar, não, Maria? Tu não sabe que aqui não é lugar pra tu ficar agora? Em vez de ficar perdendo tempo desenhando o nome, vai lá pra fora arranjar o que fazer, vá. Tem um pátio pra varrer, tem que levar água pros bichos. Vai, menina, vê se tu me ajuda, Maria José. Benção, pai.
Deus abençoe. Tudo bom, Maria?
Tudo bom, Antônio.
Vem aqui, deixa que eu levo.
Não precisa não, Antônio.
Mãe. Benção, mãe. Benção, mãe. Benção, mãe.
Benção, mãe.
Benção, mãe.
Deus abençoe. Deus abençoe. Lude. Ô, Lude. Ô, Lude. Ô, Lude, tu não tá me ouvindo chamar, não, Lude? Tu não sabe que aqui não é lugar pra tu ficar agora? Em vez de ficar perdendo tempo desenhando o nome, vai lá pra fora arranjar o que fazer, vá. Tem um pátio pra varrer, tem que levar água pro bicho. Vai, menina, vê se tu me ajuda, Lude. fica aí fazendo nada. Desenhando um nome.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Professor Daniel Ferraz. It's very difficult to speak after this video. It's very moving, but we have a lot to share with all people here today. So we thank you very much for your speech here. We have a lot of words thanking you in the chat and being grateful for all your speech and asking for sharing your slides if you can. So we may do it through the emails.
I'll send them to you, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much. And a lot of people asking as well for the book because they are very interested. I don't know if it's an electronic book. But
can I put the link here? It's free download.
Okay, I think it would be better for all of the international participants in the chat mainly. So guys, I have some notes for you before starting the questions. We have already the attendance list in the YouTube, so you can make your attendance to the list on YouTube for today. So aqueles que estão aguardando, né, a lista de presença já está aí no chat do YouTube. Então, por favor, preencham. We are going to give you an extraordinary, not usual, not common, and we are not going to do it all again, but we are going to send you the link for the presentation of yesterday, because we have just put into the chat only once, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of people didn't noted it, and a lot of people didn't sign it. So we are going to put for you right now the presence list, the attendance list for the yesterday speech on the opening, okay? But it's just an exception. We are not going to do it anymore with further lists, ok? Então vamos colocar mais uma vez também no chat para vocês a lista de presença de ontem, da apresentação de ontem, para aqueles que perderam, porque só foi postada uma vez, mas não repetiremos isso, ok? So, Professor Daniel, we have some questions, some very interesting questions here for you in the chat during your presentation. It has created a real wave here of interaction with the participants. So we have this first question from Alexandra Piaseca. I believe is this Piaseca Tio. I'm very sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But the question is, do you distinguish between writing and text?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. There are not only different words, different vocabulary, let's say, but they have different functions, right? Writing for me is the action, obviously, and the text, and then text, Alexandra. Then it's a very disputed term too, because text can be a lot of things. At least to me, text can be the written word, and that's what is the basis of academic literacy, as I've tried to show you. But text can be a lot of things. According to Bakhtin, it can be a lot of things as well. Many scholars would say, as I've tried to show you during the presentation, text is mostly understood as, in our case, the linear written. In Western, Eastern societies, it's with ideograms and from right to left. But we can also talk about multimodal text. So this Vida Maria, this video, according to this theory, could be considered a multimodal text in which you have the words, the body, the gestures, the visual, the sound, and the movement. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. I believe it's just the same person, or someone called Cherry. I also have a question. Do you distinguish between writing and drawing?
Again, yes, I do. Yeah, definitely. There are different functions of communication, right? Um, at the same time, a drawing, Cherry, for me, again, uh, a drawing for a child is an expression of communication. Therefore, for the child who was not alphabetized yet, was not literate yet, that is a form of writing. She's writing through images. She's trying to communicate through images. So it's a form of writing. Of course, not the traditional one, but it is a form of writing, especially for children, right? But there are definitely different functions of communication, of expression, right?
Right. Thank you very much, Professor. Annalie Silva is asking, so if reading and writing are linked to social and cultural contexts, when these elements change, can we say that the notion of writing and reading changes?
Yes, definitely, Annalise. Yeah, I know I have straight to the point questions, but the questions are good already. They come with the answer. Definitely, that's what I was trying to show that. And because the theme of our lecture today, our presentation today, is academic literacies, I also believe that even academic literacies, they have changed, Annalise, because we see nowadays research projects including images as texts, including, and of course, what I'm saying is very polemic, because what I'm proposing here is not to change academia or academic literacies, but to expand the concept because of social transformations, right? Because of this negotiation that it's so important for teachers to have with students. Why is it always what I want my students to write? Why cannot they sometimes write what they wish in the way they do, and sometimes write in the way that academic literacy requires the writing? So they need both. And the problem for me is that when we stop in just one side of the coin, so we should, and I think negotiation and a lot of study, we need to study a lot the 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 themes of academic literacies, and writing included. How do we see writing? How are people researching and carrying on projects, etc.? But I do agree with you. I think as society transforms, all of our fields, they are necessarily transformed. And we transform them too. We transform society as well. So it's a very dialogical process, I think.
Okay. Diogenes Lima is asking, Daniel, what do you think it should be done in order to make teacher preparation programs in Brazil see the importance of including academic literacy in their curriculum?
Hi, Diógenes. Wow, such an honor. Obrigado, Diógenes, por estar aqui. My very good colleague from Bahia. We have a lot of partnerships together, including academic literacy projects, right, Diógenes? Writing and publishing books. It's the question, I think, for this presentation, Diogenes. I think there should be a curricular rethinking. We should start rethinking our letras, right, curriculum or curricula around the country in order to include the academic literacy disciplines more to the beginning of the course together with the linguistics discipline. So I'm not saying we should, and this is the challenge, because if you include something, you have to exclude something else, right? But I do think that academic literacy should be included as official courses and right at the beginning, first semester, second semester. For example, if students cannot do it in English yet because of language level, because they are not, it's for many reasons, but mostly because the excuse is because, well, why not start doing it in Portuguese? And then you do something like Portuguese and English academic literacy and you compare. This is what I do now. I'm teaching an academic literacy discipline, which is entitled Topics of Research, Tópicos de Pesquisa, and I'm doing both. I do it in English for projects in English, but I also do it in Portuguese. I compare both languages. I use English and Portuguese, então eu dou aula misturando inglês e português, porque se ele for fazer um projeto de iniciação científica, é em língua portuguesa. Se ele for fazer um projeto de mestrado, é em língua portuguesa. Mas se ele for fazer o nosso TGI, que é o trabalho de conclusão, it's in English. So I teach in both. It's a huge challenge, but I think it's possible. So redesign of the curriculum and bringing all these disciplines to the beginning of the Letras course. This is what I believe. And finally, laboratories of academic literacies to help not only the Letras students, but to help the whole university, the students from the other courses and areas and fields, also to develop their academic literacies, their writing, to develop their academic writing in Portuguese and in English. So we have this at USP. We have this LAC, this coordinated by Professor Marília Ferreira, and she coordinates a laboratory of academic literacies here at USP for the whole USP, for everybody from Cidade Universitária. Yeah. But good question. It's a challenge.
Okay. Yeah, so a real one. I was laughing a little bit when you were talking about to add something, we have to exclude something because it's real. We live here, this in our course as well. Very good point, Professor. Mr. Elbir, I believe, is that has a question. Probably is one colleague of ours from China. Professor Daniel, how can you teach critical English literacy for elementary students without being explicitly against Bolsonaro, so not losing your job?
Well, that's a very important question, right? Because in a moment of my talk, I just said how difficult it has been for education in general in Brazil, especially for universities. It's what I do think, I forgot his name. He was with me yesterday in the Australian event. Oh my goodness. Can you put your name here? Oh, maybe he wants to be anonymous, but we were yesterday in the Australian event. But Albert, I think that I think it's a challenge, especially when we're talking about children education, because elementary education is the only level in which the parents are very connected to their children. They're following their children. When the children become adolescents, they go to medium school, medium education, high school, and then it seems to me that the parents leave their children to their adolescents and adults to be responsible for their course. But when we're talking about children, there should be this talk amongst not only the coordinators and the principal of the schools, but also their parents. And this is sometimes never done. So instead, for me, instead of fighting with the parent that is against the type of critical work that you're doing, why don't you invite those parents to come and talk to you? Maybe the result will be nothing, will be zero, but I think it's worth a try. This is one thing. And I think that there should always be a planning and a preparation along with the school. And I think that the teacher that teaches children should always know the limitations. At the same time, I think it's possible to work with materials that children will like. Maybe the choice of materials might help, right? But again, thinking about these limitations, because we need the job, and you agreed to work in a certain kind of school that has a certain kind of methodology and that has a certain kind of objective. So we agreed to that as well. So it's always this, paradox again of when is it possible, but I think it should always be negotiated with the coordination. And what I tell my students is that when it's not possible, don't feel frustrated, because there are many things in our lives that we cannot do. So our teacher side is just one of them. But if we think about our lives, right? If we think about all the things we see happening in our lives, in Brazil, in our country, in our city, there are many things that we feel incapable, we feel frustrated. So I think it's very important for us to not to be a loser, let's say, but not to conform, but to know that the critical process, the critical education is a long process. We've been talking about Paulo Freire for since the decade of 60, and a lot of things have changed for the better, but a lot of things have changed for the worse as well. So I think living within these contradictions, and when it's time to do something, when it's time to be more silent, I think it's a good strategy. At least for me, this is what I've been trying to do in my classes. And children is such an important work. I do agree with you. It's a very important level of education. Yeah.
Okay, Professor. I have just remembered something I heard on one of our applied linguistic classes, that we should use knowledge like to refract and to reflect. It's both. So we have to put something outside, but we have to make a reevaluation, or kind of reevaluation from inside. So we can try to use this from the inside to make this changing happen, and not necessarily by an outdoor, but sometimes indoors. Very nice word. So we have here another question from Alina, and Alina is asking, what is stopping Brazilian professors from their research? As far as I understand, linguistics is not microbiology and doesn't need expensive equipment and big investments. It's a very nice question, just to make it clear how is the Brazilian research life here in Brazil, especially in this moment?
Yeah, right now, Alina, as I said, things are very difficult. Just look at the data. It's not me, Daniel Ferraz, saying it's the whole country experiencing and witnessing this difficulty that you mentioned. The difficulties of research in the areas of linguistics, applied linguistics, literature, human sciences in general, political sciences, philosophy courses being closed, being shut down. So you witness, and but also this is happening with hard sciences, with medical sciences, with biological sciences too. And why is that? Because the cuts are general. So the cuts in research, in science, scientific research, they are general. Just look at our funding agencies like CAPES, CNPq, all the scholarships, right, being cut. So all of it is a very difficult moment because they don't see value. I mean, those who are responsible for these agencies and for the politics, let's say, of funding, of investments, they don't see this as important. So you are negating the importance of this. Now, this is happening in all areas, and we knew this was going to happen, and it's difficult. It's difficult time. I don't have an answer for you, but I think that things like some things can be very problematic. For example, we use like the money of our salary to do research. I don't agree with that. We do it, we do it against the odds. We do it because we want to do it. So we need to stop and think collectively and respond to this in a collective way. And this is again very difficult because we are isolated. We are we still in the pandemic. We are facing health problems, sanitary conditions, economic problems everywhere. So see the prices of things, right? How they have, exploded, and so we have to deal with all this. And yet carry on our research projects. It has been very, very difficult. Here at USP, funding is also, even though USP is a state university, but we get funding from CAPES, right? From the federal agency. So it has been very, very difficult. For me, I think it should be a collective effort to respond to this and to show that we are valuable, that we in philosophy, in languages, we're doing our work. But it is a challenge. I do agree with you. It's very difficult to carry on research, especially in linguistics, philosophy, languages, and literature. Because, Alina, even though we don't need the laboratory, okay, as people, and this is a lot of investment, right? Engineering, biology, chemistry, etc. And it's okay, they need it for their areas. But even though we don't need laboratories, we need to buy books. We need to get funding for producing a website. We need to get scholarships, bolsa de iniciação científica para pessoas que não têm condições nem de pegar o transporte para a universidade, as bolsas de mestrado, doutorado, as pessoas dependem, e é uma ajuda que permite que a pessoa pelo menos conduza um mestrado sem ter que trabalhar. But so at the same time, we don't need the lab and the equipment. We need good computers, good connections, good printers. We do need equipment too, but we we need funding for us to carry on research. Então, se uma área precisa mais de laboratório, isso é um investimento de $1 milhão de dólares, nós temos que ganhar esse 1 milhão para distribuir em bolsas, porque o nosso trabalho é humano, nosso trabalho é teórico, é intelectual, é filosófico. Então, isso garantiria uma equidade entre as áreas. Eu não sei se eu te respondi, Alina, but this is what I think, right?
Okay, just as a kind of personal testimony, I've been a professor at UFAC for the last 5 years. And when I entered into the university, we had at about 3 scholarship for students for each research project in the institution, enrolled in the institution. Right now, we have less than 1 scholarship per project. Which means that not all professors and not all projects have scholarship students working along together because we do not have money. It's just that simple question. So there is exactly that. We have one last question here, Professor, from our dear colleague, Professor Kayla Lopes. She's the coordinator of our English course, English program here at UFAC, and as well we have Professor Jairo here, Professor Diogenes, and some other professors from other institutions, but especially from here, we have, beyond the coordinators of this event, we have Professor Kayla and Professor Jairo here. Professor Kayla has this question for you. Daniel, I've been thinking about decolonized language education. In your opinion, we could propose an academic writing project in a decolonized perspective. How so?
Yeah, the how so. Thank you, Kayla. So nice to see you, Kayla. Grande beijo, grande abraço. Kayla, I do believe that. I think that would be an innovation because the way I see the area of academic literacies and writing, they are still attached to one idea of writing, as I've tried to show you this morning. And a decolonizing or a decolonial academic literacy or a decolonial academic writing project would emphasize the localities. So what's going on in Rio Branco, around Rio Branco, the state of Acre, the Amazon. So it starts with the locality and with the student. So this is a decolonial project for me, where the student starts speaking for himself at the same time he's trying to develop the writing. Also, a decolonial project is also questioning, dealing, discussing, problematizing issues of language and coloniality. O quanto que a língua é colonizadora, qualquer que seja ela, tanto a língua portuguesa quanto a língua inglesa, né? Ela coloniza seres, corpos, gêneros. Então, it's through language, né? Através da língua, through language as linguagem, língua e linguagem, that we also unfortunately establish some of the relations and social relations that we see today. So a decolonizing academic writing project would deal with all of these issues for me: the locality, the subjective of the students, and would analyze the relationship between language and coloniality, also the bodies, the emotions, the race issues. So, and then the student could negotiate with the teacher what would be developed along the writing process and what kinds of writing would be possible. So what I did in my postgraduate course this year, the discipline Visual Literacies, Letramentos Visuais, I offered the students the possibility of writing visual works. So they could write a whole work with images, and they would create a narrative through the images, or multimodal text, visual, writing, and YouTube links. So that would be the work in which me as a teacher, I would have to look at the image and read and interpret the image, read the text, and go to YouTube to see the link, how everything is being connected. I have seen master thesis, eu já tenho visto teses nesse formato, né? Totally multimodal and linked, a tese toda linkada com QR Code, em que você, no QR Code, já pode ver o vídeo dos dados, e aí você consegue ler o texto, e abaixo já tem a imagem. Isso é o que dá para fazer no papel. But there are many things we can do, but then again, we have to redesign and rethink the way we see literacy, academic literacy, and writing. And this is a challenge because academia is very, very traditional. But I do think it's possible for a decolonial academic writing project to be designed.
Okay, very good, Professor. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to hear you. We could do it all day long. Unfortunately, we know that you have some other appointments for today, but it's been a real pleasure to have you here. It was wonderful to hear you. There is a lot of cheering for you in the chat, a lot of people thanking you and being grateful for all the content, all the speech, and some of our colleagues here saying just nice to see you again. So we thank you very much for your availability to be here and to give this great presentation for us today. Our event was enlightened because of your speech. We really thank you. I would like to thank everyone who is attending us until now, from Australia, from China, from Italy, from different countries, and especially for those who are just as we are from public universities all over the country and are here just trying to get better ways to do their jobs in their day by day. So we thank you a lot for being here and to attend our event. Okay. We wish you a great day. And now I leave you with Professor Maísa, who is the coordinator of this wonderful project. Thank you, Professor Maísa, for the opportunity to be here today with all the students and colleagues. The word is with you. Your microphone, Professor, please.
Ok. Tô ouvindo agora? Okay, once again, thank you, Daniel. Listen to you is always great, very inspiring, very provocative, and so many issues we have to think about. Thank you again. And agora eu vou fazer alguns avisos em português, só para reforçar, antes das palavras finais do professor Daniel, vou só reforçar o que a gente já tem colocado em inglês no chat, ok? A lista de presença de ontem, como foi passada somente uma vez, a gente passou de novo hoje, eu peço que fiquem atentos para assinar a lista de presença de ontem. A lista de presença de hoje já foi compartilhada no chat 2 vezes, então não deixem de assinar. A gente compartilha sempre no final da palestra do professor e no final dos comentários, tá? Não deixem de assinar. Para o certificado, você tem que assistir, no mínimo, pelo menos 3 palestras. Nós temos 5 grandes palestras, né? O ideal é que você assistam todas, mas a gente precisa ter a frequência, ter a assinatura de pelo menos 3 para poder emitir o certificado. Os vídeos estão disponíveis no site do ELLI. Quando a gente termina aqui, o vídeo já está disponível lá, tá? Para quem estava perguntando. E, por último, né, não posso deixar de dizer que ano que vem nós teremos o nosso curso de pós-graduação em língua inglesa, já foi aprovado pelo Conselho Universitário. Eu, o professor Rogério e a professora Patrícia estamos trabalhando já no edital do processo de seleção, e nós contaremos com o professor Daniel aqui com a gente, presencialmente, né, Daniel? O Daniel vai trabalhar 2 componentes do curso de pós-graduação em língua inglesa, tá bom? Então, vai ser muito bom ano que vem a gente contar com o Daniel aqui em pessoa. Então, é isso, eu passo agora a palavra para o Daniel, para os agradecimentos finais. Muito obrigada a todos que estiveram presentes aqui hoje. E é isso, bom dia, boa tarde para vocês. Daniel, com você, querido.
Thank you, Maísa. I'll be very, very short. Eu também gostaria de agradecer imensamente a Maísa. A gente vem trabalhando junto há muitos anos e, enfim, also apologize, pedir desculpas aí pela correria que eu tô. Às vezes we try to talk and we don't get it, but Maísa, with a lot of admiration for everything you do, all your fight for the course that I've been following for at least 10 years, pelo menos por aí uns 10 anos, to say that I am the godfather of your wedding. This is, I need to register, okay? Sou o padrinho aí desse casamento. But I'd like to thank the audience. Muito obrigado, gente. I'd like to say that, again, you were very generous with me, giving me an hour 10, an hour 20 minutes. This is so rare, é muito raro. Então, obrigado pela generosidade do tempo. I hope we had the opportunity to discuss writing and the academic literacy in a very contemporary way. Thank you, Rogério, for the comments. Congratulations on the event, and I wish you more 50 years of UFAC Letras. Muito obrigado. Eu estou à disposição para os contatos, if you wish to contact me for text, to keep on talking about this. And writing is part of our lives. Gente, a escrita é parte da nossa vida e como a gente escreve e reescreve o tempo todo e com isso a gente também transforma a nós mesmos e ao mundo, tá bom? Thank you, muito obrigado. Obrigado, gente.
Obrigada, pessoal. Até amanhã com a palestra da professora doutora Antonella Luporini, da Universidade da Bologna, tá bom? Até amanhã a todos. Bye, bye.